Hello? Hello? Alright, we are good. Hello, YouTube world. This is Nicholas Montez here. And welcome back to another YouTube channel video live stream. Today we are doing the ultimate list. We are ranking all 35 films in the MCU. It's kind of crazy to say that we are 35 films in this franchise. But with that said, let's go ahead and get started ranking all 35 of these fantastic movies. So, I might put the list down below, or I'll probably put the list of movies later. Alright, I could stay. Okay, so first up, we are doing this in release order, by the way. No chronological order, because timelines be messed up. But first up, we have Iron Man, the film that kicked off this entire franchise, and I think this is a pretty great Marvel movie, and it was a great way to start the franchise. It's going to go in B. I don't think it's fully top tier, but it is great. It's such a great origin story for this character. Robert Downey Jr. is fantastic as Tony Stark, and the overall movie itself is just really good. So, yeah, it goes in B. Next up, we have The Incredible Hulk. This one is just so good, especially now that some of these plot lines have been paid off in Brave New World. I kind of liked it. And me personally, I had no issues with The Incredible Hulks. I wasn't a person that hates on it. So, yeah, you're going to go in C. So, like, yeah, I innocently liked this one. Then we have Iron Man 2. And this is one that, honestly, if you're comparing it to... Because most people have this at the bottom of the MCU. If I'm being honest, comparing it to some of the recent garbage that the MCU has put out these days, it's not that bad. Now, I'm not saying it's great either, but it is better than most of the films that have come out in the last few years. You get some great Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark in here. You get some fantastic action sequences when they happen. There's some enjoyability to be in this Iron Man world. So, it's still fun. But you can tell there's a lot of messy. Justin Hammer is very messy. Whiplash is not a good villain. The introduction of Black Widow was great, but it is very floppy and stuff. So, I'm going to put this one in D. And then we have Thor, which I also think is a very interesting one to talk about, because I think the Thor franchise has been the one franchise to not necessarily get it right. Like, Thor Ragnarok is great, and we'll talk about the two other Thor sequels later, but I think for me, it's like, they did some pretty good stuff. Like, the introduction to Asgard, I like. I like the introduction to all these wonderful characters with Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Tom Hiddleston, Anthony Hopkins. Even some of the human characters I thought were kind of nice. The problem here is the story just kind of doesn't really know what it is trying to be. Is it a war between Asgardians and Frost Giants? Is it a story where Thor gets sent down to Earth and he needs to learn, like, how to be human or whatever? And then Loki learns that he's a Frost Giant, but then he wants to rule Asgard, but then he wants to destroy his own family that he knows who he is. Like, it's so weird in the way that this movie came to be. And so it's like, it has all the good stuff to be good, but the story for me is so messy in the way all that stuff happens. So it's still got some memorable stuff, but not that great. And then, of course, the third act is kind of boring because, you know, Thor can easily beat Loki. So, not exactly the most interesting fight. But I'll still put it in D, because it is still kind of decent with some decent scenes. Then we have Captain America, the First Avenger, the first of our Captain America films we'll be talking about on this list. And I think that this is a very good origin story for Captain America. I just think that what this movie was able to do is, I love the origin story for Steve Rogers. I love everything he's about. But even just everything else with, like, the aesthetics, the 1940s tone. I really like the score from Alan Silvestri. It's so iconic and fits the movie perfectly. And even in the way all the little side characters, they all work. I think the big problem here is that it just feels too simple. That Red Skull, like the whole war plot line and the villains, they just feel too simple. There's nothing really complex about that, and that's what kind of suffers for the movie. Now, I think the stuff once he's finally Captain America and he's going through World War II, I think that stuff is kind of cool. And the way they transition for him to go in the present day is really cool. I don't know. Besides that, I think it's a really good origin story for Captain America. And so, yeah, I'm actually going to make an extra tier, though, because I can't do this. No.
Soup dumplings, whatever the hell those things are.
Hold up.
Here's the thing.
Sorry. I'm gonna put yes. But yeah, that's where it's gonna go. And I'll make an extra tier for yeah, so there's just certain tiers. So yeah, that's where it'll go. And then we have The Avengers. For me, this is easily one of the top tier films in the MCU. They're gonna go in A tier. It's like, this movie just culminates greatness on everything. That they were able to finally pull this off, bring all these characters together. And I love that this movie fully feels like the big payoff. Not only do you get the payoff of S.H.I.E.L.D., of the Avengers, but, like, you get the payoff of everything. You get to finally get to know Nick Fury and Maria Hill and Phil Coulson as characters. You get this, and then you get to see these characters come in full circle. It is just so amazing. The story is so simple, but it's able to have all these iconic character moments that, like, even if it's just about assembling a team to stop an alien invasion, it's so iconic, so memorable, such a great movie. Needless to say more. Then we have Iron Man 3. I think that this is a movie that is... The story itself is fine, but much like the other Iron Man movies, the movie is just very entertaining. There's actually a lot of stuff I really enjoy about Iron Man 3. So I'm actually going to go ahead and put this one in the C category. I like Iron Man 3 a lot. I don't get the hate by it. And then we have Thor: The Dark World, which I unfortunately understand the hate for it. Now, this isn't Now, the thing is, this is actually one of the worst MCU films in my opinion. But I will actually say it is at least a little bit better than the garbage that we've been getting the last few years. Because the actors are still on point. The action sequences are still on point. And the special effects are still on point. But it suffers from what the first Thor did in that it doesn't have a good story. The villains do not make a whole lot of sense, and it is, once again, very awkward with the human stuff and going back to Earth. So, yeah. I'm going to put this one in eh. But then we get Captain America the Winter Soldier, and I think that, like, looking back on this one, this is the ultimate sequel in how to take all of the things that worked well about the first film and just captivate it in such a great way to where, you know, the first film, everything was just kind of plain and simple, but now you place Captain America in the present day where everything is so complicated and it's complex, and that's what makes the film so unique, is that you never really know who to trust and the people that he's working with. And not only, they found just a great way to do something unique in the MCU. Not just be a good sequel, do something unique in the MCU, but also kind of turn the MCU on its shoulders to where you realize this place, S.H.I.E.L.D., that basically was the thing that brought the Avengers together, yeah, all of it was controlled by Hydra. After all these years, during the years after we won the war, Hydra took in this place called S.H.I.E.L.D., and it is just so fantastic. And you realize Bucky didn't die. He was working for S.H.I.E.L.D. this whole time. He was working for Hydra this whole time. It's so unique, and the way they pull it off with all these iconic sequences, and it's just such a unique film in the MCU. And the only reason, like, I'm going to put this one in the yes tier, because it's just so damn good. I can't put it, I would like to put it in the A tier. Do I want to put it in the A tier? Okay, you know what? Just for today, possibly just for today, you're going in A tier. I'm probably going to need to change my list around, though. Yeah, Winter Soldier, fantastic film. And I also just love the introduction of Falcon and all that stuff. I love Alexander Pierce. It's great. I can't put it better than the Avengers, but it's going in A tier, though. I will put it as an A tier film. It's very good. Captain America just makes good movies. Then we have the original Guardians of the Galaxy, and this is one that I could actually say it is not good. It is not better than Iron Man. I can definitely say that, and therefore, on a good day, I would say it's better than Winter Soldier, but today, Winter Soldier is better. I'm going with Guardians. I usually go with Guardians, but today, Winter Soldier is better, so Guardians is still going in yes tier. It's still a great movie. I love that James Gunn was able to bring in just these nobodies of the characters and basically make them somebodies in such an interesting and captivating way. This movie is emotional. The soundtrack is great, and it is just such a great movie, and it's so rewatchable and so entertaining. And yeah, I loved what they did with this movie. And then we have Avengers Age of Ultron, in which I think it's just very enjoyable. It's just more of what you wanted to see. Though at the same time, I think this movie just does a little too much. You get awesome moments with all the Avengers. You get great action sequences. You get great new introductions to characters with Vision and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. You get Ultron as the main villain. You get all these stuff, but it just does a little too much. So for me, I'm going to put this one in C. But it's going to go at the bottom of C, unfortunately. Real quick, got to get a water run. And next up we have Ant-Man, which, honestly, I think this is one of the most unique films in the entire MCU. To where they just found a way to like, how are you going to introduce a new character? And you basically make it a heist movie. And I personally just loved what they did with that. That, to me, is just such genius, like, writing and storytelling, that at the same time, it can be clever, and it can be funny, and all the right notes. And honestly, as Edgar Wright was supposed to be the original director for this movie, you can tell all the beats of how he would have been better as the director. And honestly, if he was the director for the Ant-Man trilogy, I think this probably would have been one of the most cleverest trilogies of all time. But obviously that didn't happen because Payne redirected every film. And honestly, I don't think it's gotten better. Ant-Man and the Wasp is still good, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, we will talk about that in a little bit. But for now, Ant-Man 1 is great. And I'm going to put this one at the bottom of yes tier. I just happen to think Guardians and Iron Man are a little bit better. But then we have Captain America Civil War, the next Captain America movie. And yeah, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite films of all time. Not just in the MCU, but one of my favorite films of all time. If you don't know me, there's Marvel Studios makes great movies, and there's 3 that are in my top 10 of all time, and Civil War is one of them. And that this movie, like I said with Age of Ultron, this movie, with Age of Ultron, where it tried to set up and do so much, Civil War actually succeeds with doing that, to where they placed the Civil War event in the 3rd Captain America movie. And honestly, after watching The Winter Soldier and seeing this movie, it perfectly makes sense to do the Civil War storyline in this movie. And what makes it work is that you have the Sokovia Accords, where the Avengers can no longer be a public team protecting the world. In order for them to operate, they have to be under the government's rule. And if you know Steve, he doesn't really trust the government after what happened with S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra, so he doesn't trust the world. And but then you see Tony Stark's side of the Accords, and that all the stuff with Pepper and Ultron, he doesn't trust himself to really do anything, so he'll do anything to protect the people he loves. And even just seeing all the other characters, and I love that it was an Avengers 2.0 film, and the fact that all these other characters, they were involved in the conflict too, and to see their side of the Accords and everything. And it was so interesting to see these characters for 10 years, and they're now kind of not doing so well. And you see this big friendship of 10 years almost pretty much ending. And I really enjoyed the way they did that. Even Baron Zemo is such a unique villain in splitting the Avengers apart. But at the same time, while it's able to manage the story of Captain America, the Avengers storyline with Civil War, it also manages to actually set up stuff with why, to enter the question, why did the Avengers lose in Infinity War? Because they split up. But at the same time, it's also able to introduce some great characters, such as Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther and Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and they work so perfectly in this movie. Even bringing back Hawkeye and Ant-Man in the film, it does such greatness for this movie. It is just a match made in heaven. And then, of course, you get the iconic airport sequence. This movie is just a match made in heaven. Such a good movie. Great action, great drama. Perfect movie. And then we get the first Doctor Strange movie, in which I think the first Doctor Strange is really good. I like that we get just another interesting, new story in the MCU with magic and portals and other worlds. There's something cool to that, and it's kind of, if anything, it's kind of like the otherworldly MCU Harry Potter, if you kind of think about it. So I'm going to put this one in B. But it's going to go behind Captain America, unfortunately. The only problem that I really have with this movie is Caecilius kind of sucks, and the movie's a little too short, but overall, it's pretty good. And then we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm actually going to put this one in C as well. I'm actually going to put this one in C because I think overall, when it's being a James Gunn movie, it really works. From the soundtrack to the character moments to some of the story beats with certain characters. I just loved the way they handled certain things in this movie. Sometimes it could get a little dark with like torturing baby Groot and like all the stuff with Quill's dad, but overall, it's still so much fun to see all these characters. Even though I am a little bit bothered that the whole film like basically takes place on like ships or like brains, because you realize Ego's planet isn't technically a planet, it's like just him. So if you think about it, you're like in his body, or like a planet he made. I don't even know. But besides that, those are really nitpicks. I'm not saying this movie's perfect, but it is a hell of an enjoyable time. Then we have Spider-Man Homecoming. I think that this is a great movie. Of course, it's coming off after Civil War. I was so excited to finally see Spider-Man in the MCU and get his own movie. And for the most part, it's really good. I like that they are going to the high school side of Peter Parker, which is something we haven't really seen from a Spider-Man movie at all, from all these movies from Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, because mostly all of them go to college afterwards. And in this one, we're seeing him fresh in high school and still learning to be a hero. And that's interesting to see. And to kind of see him, meet new villains like Vulture and Shocker and all that stuff. And it's good. Michael Keaton is a great villain in Vulture. And yeah, so the movie just works so freaking well. And the only issue that I kind of have with it is sometimes I think when you're trying to do a different Spider-Man story, they try to be so different that sometimes it doesn't really work. And that part of the main story of what makes Spider-Man work so well is he has stakes. He doesn't always get what he wants. He doesn't have consequences. He doesn't really do consequences for anything in this movie. But then also, I wish the action sequences were a little bit better. Like, you had in Civil War, he was literally going toe-to-toe with Captain America, wrapping around Ant-Man's legs. And in this one, he can't even fight a Stark Tech-based Vulture guy. And he can't even fight the Shocker either. And he almost lets a train slip out of his... Not a train, boat tear apart. So, yeah, that is a little bit weird. I understand he's like a trainee, but if you've had your powers for over 6 months and 2 months later Vulture's coming back, you could have had those months to actually prepare. But hey, some of these people decided to do different things with these writers for these different movies, so I'm going to put this one in A as well, but it's going to go at the bottom of yes. Then we have Thor Ragnarok, just another great MCU movie that I think it's going to go in the yes tier as well. There is just something so captivating about this movie. What makes this movie so great is that finally we got a good Thor movie. And that basically they all the directors, whether it's Kenneth Branagh, Alan Taylor, all the directors for the last 2 Thor movies, they sucked. And so Marvel wanted to bring in a new director called Taika Waititi. And I thought he brought this movie justice, to where he finally took Thor back to space. He kept him there. And while he couldn't necessarily keep him in Asgard because Ragnarok is afoot. And if you don't know what Ragnarok is, that is when all of Asgard gets destroyed. And yeah, it does seem kind of weird because, like, why are we just going to destroy Asgard when we barely get to spend any time in there? That's the point. We're going to end this franchise, and we're going to bring in Hela, we're going to bring in Valkyrie, and we're going to get tons of fun, and we're going to get our own Guardians of the Galaxy in here. and exactly a much, in my opinion, a better version of Guardians of the Galaxy and a much more funner version. And we're going to bring in Hulk, so we're going to bring up a little bit of Planet Hulk in here. And I'm like, this movie's just so good. And you bring that sauce in there, and it's just, it's so freaking good. Sometimes the humor can get a little too much. I think it's one of the funniest films in the MCU. So I think they found the perfect blend. The action sequences are fantastic. This is one where I was just like, the first two Thor movies just lacked so much. And then you finally get this one, and it's like, it kind of just found its way to just have fun and make you laugh, but also tell a really good a good story for Thor as well. So it's like they finally found the good footing for Thor. So I really enjoyed what they did with this movie, and it's overall flawless. Then we have Black Panther, the first film of the Black Panther franchise. I think what they did with this movie was very good. I think this is one of the best films in the MCU. Coming off of Civil War, I think Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, was one of the best characters in that movie. And so now, when I first heard that they're making a Black Panther movie, I was like, how are you going to do this? And now that it's been over 7 years, by the time I'm done recording this, it'll probably be 12 a.m., February 16th, which will be 7 years since Black Panther came out. And now that it's been 7 years since this movie's come out, I can finally say this is basically the Lion King of the MCU. You go back to Guardians of the Galaxy, that's basically the Star Wars of the MCU. You want to go to Ant-Man, it's a heist movie like Den of Thieves or something like that, though Den of Thieves came out later. Winter Soldier, it's kind of like a spy espionage thriller like The Fugitive or something like that, or All the President's Men. And Black Panther is a film about a king and his kingdom. It's not really a superhero movie. And me personally, I loved exploring the world of Wakanda and exploring, the character of T'Challa more. Having and also introducing a bunch of great new characters with Letitia Wright Shuri, then Naigurira's Okoye, Lupita Nyong'o's Nakia, Winston Duke's M'Baku, Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda. Like, all of these characters are so great. And then, of course, you get Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger, who I think is easily one of the top MCU villains, who was just wronged by the world. And he saw all the stuff that happened to black people over the last, decade. And you realize Wakanda did nothing to help the people outside of Wakanda. And you think of this nation of black people that have the greatness of technology, and they never went and helped their fellow people outside of that. And that's heartbreaking. That's terrible. And especially to see of what King T'Chaka, he was known to be this great king, was he though? And I thought all of that stuff, and how do we do good by how to be good kings, how to be good leaders. I think this movie did a really nice job in doing all of that. So, do I think it's better than Winter Soldier? Sorry, it deactivated. I'm gonna put this one in A, and it's definitely going above Winter Soldier. This movie is just perfect. Maybe some of the action could be a bit better, and I wish we could get a little bit longer, but overall, it is one of the best films in the MCU. I love it. And then we get possibly my favorite movie of all time, Avengers Infinity War. Easily, when they announced this movie, I was like, so wait, we're going to get the Avengers, plus the Guardians of the Galaxy, plus Black Panther, plus Doctor Strange, plus Spider-Man, all in one movie? Now, of course, we don't get them all teamed up together, but the final result is masterful. The way that they were able to team up all these characters, whether it was a team of Avengers with Wakandans and Black Panther and Wakanda fighting Thanos' army, or some Avengers in Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man with some Guardians on Titan fighting Thanos. All of that worked, and seeing all the character interactions were great, but also they delivered a great villain in Thanos, where we dive so much into his philosophy and what the universe should be, and it packs some great emotion, some great action, some great laughs, some great iconic moments, and it also just packs an emotional punch where you see half of all your favorite characters turn to dust, and it's emotional. It is something very emotional. And what's funny is I went into this movie having not seen all the MCU films before this, but now I have seen every film of this, so it kind of hits a little bit harder now. But yeah, Infinity War is a masterpiece. Why am I wasting my time talking about it? You're going in A tier. Why am I wasting my time putting in the list? It's going in A tier. And then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think this movie is pretty good. I can't really say too much other than that because, like, it's basic. I like the introduction of Wasp in here. I like Ghost in here, and I am excited to see her in Thunderbolts. Where exactly do you talk more about it from here? I just kind of wish we, like... Me personally, even after watching this movie makes me want to watch more of Hank Pym's Ant-Man and Janet Van Dyne's Wasp. I just want to see more with that. Because technically there was going to be a scene with them in the movie, I believe. But I think they cut it out. And I would have just loved to see it, bro. I would have loved to see it. But overall, it's fine. So I'm going to put this one into C. Then we have Captain Marvel, and a lot of mixed feelings when this movie came out first in 2019. I thought it was fine. I really liked the 90s aesthetic of it. I liked seeing a less cynical Nick Fury, and like before he knew about Avengers. I do think the joke about how he got his eye was not that great. I'm gonna have this in the back of my mind that he got it from the Skrull. That's how my brain works. I'm gonna say that he got it from the Skrull because the way he actually gets in the movie is not that great. Brie Larson is good as Captain Marvel. I don't really have anything else other than to say than that, but yeah, it's good. You're gonna go in C. But then finally, we have Avengers Endgame. And I think that this is another one of the best MCU films. My second favorite movie of all time. And I think what this movie masters so well, but also kind of suffers, is that this movie is able to balance being a drama and just focusing on the characters that survived and showing you how did these characters deal with the blip. And how they deal with trauma, how they deal with all this stuff, and getting some new characters that we didn't get to see in Infinity War with Ant-Man and Hawkeye. I thought that was cool. But at the same time, it also manages to be a great payoff of everything we've seen in this franchise up to this point in time, where we get the time travel element and going back to the past movies with like the Avengers and Guardians and all that stuff. And then you just get the big payoff with the third act and Cap lifting Thor's hammer, all of our heroes coming back, and Tony Stark sacrificing himself, Sam Wilson getting the shield, and everything about this movie is great. Some people complain about the Thor Lebowski stuff. I don't really care. I still think he was awesome in the third act. I think overall, like, there are going to be minor problems with this movie, but the movie does not fail to be as epic of a conclusion that this movie was. Because when it gets epic real good. And it's so good. And I love it. Does it suffer with having that epicness that Infinity War did so well? Kind of. But I still absolutely loved it for what it was. Even though I think they could have done it in a better way, I still loved it. I think it was better to pay off with the emotions of it all rather than just go straight action, 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 because you just suffered with so much in the last movie. You need time to take these characters seriously, and then you can have a big payoff. And I thought they did that perfectly. So I'm gonna put this one in the A tier easily, easy. Next up, we have Spider-Man: Far From Home, and I think that this one is okay. Yeah, very entertaining Spider-Man movie. Fun action sequences with drones and stuff. I like the Mysterio effects. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is a good villain. The problem here is I feel like the whole reason with the Edith glasses is very stupid. And all that stuff doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, because it's like, what happens when an actual threat arrives? Like, what are you going to do? So, yeah, wasn't really my thing. I'm going to put this one in C. I can't put it... Actually, you know what? I'm going to put this one in D, because this is technically for flawed movies. So yeah, it's going in D. And then we have Black Widow, and I'm going to put this one... Do I like it more than C? No, I'm going to put it in B. I think the reason why I liked Black Widow. Like, I don't get the hate for it. Like, I get it, yeah, some of the CGI stuff and, like, falling out of the sky is a little weird. Yeah, the CGI looks terrible in that scene. But, as it is the first MCU film to come out after a year of not having any MCU films, I think it's good. I connect with this movie very much because I really enjoyed, learning about the story of Natasha and the Red Room, and for how much stuff that's been coming back in most recent MCU projects like Hawkeye, and even just recently Brave New World with ex-Widow coming in here. You even get you're getting Elena in Thunderbolts, so you're getting the resolution of that. So it's like the Red Room stuff has been spreading, and we're learning a little bit more about it each time around. So it's an interesting story, and honestly, the Red Room has me curious to just learn more about it. Like, was Bucky a part of it? Like it's an interesting concept to discuss, of all these girls that were kidnapped and captured and turned into spies. It's interesting to learn about this stuff. So, honestly, I liked Black Widow. Like, I thought it was good. Then we get into one of the most disappointing films for me, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Guys, this movie had so much potential to be so good, and it just fumbled the bag. Like, the action is so good. I love all the martial arts they do with this. Like, it's flawless, even though it has some CGI in here. I like the callback to Rush Hour 2, where you're doing the bamboo fight on the glass and stuff like that. It's so cool. The problem, and I, of course, love the stuff with Wenwu and the Ten Rings and all that stuff. The problem with this movie is that when you get to the third act, you start to realize the whole reason why Wenwu called his kids is because he thinks his wife is calling to him, and realizes it's not his wife. It's a sucker. It's a soul sucker, and now we have to get dragons involved, and we have to save this village from eating the universe. And then the whole thing gets ruined by a joke, and that Shang-Chi needs to be called to do Avengers business. But instead, he sings Hotel California with Aquafina and Wong. How do you mess that up? And honestly, like, that's the thing. The movie does not feel complete to me. And I struggle with actually getting excited for Shang-Chi too, because the movie does not feel complete. And if I'm being honest, I would say the only thing that feels completed in this movie is all the stuff with Shang-Chi's sister. And that's disappointing. So, where am I going to put this movie? I'm putting it in the D tier. But I believe it's going to go at the top of D tier, though. Yeah, I'm going to put it at the top of D tier. Because I think of these films, it does the best job of doing great things. But when it comes to its bad stuff, it's really bad. But then we have Eternals. And yeah, I'm just gonna save you all. It's going in F. I can't really say much other than that. To me, this is the first time this was the first MCU film that really bombed. It was the first MCU film to be rotten at Rotten Tomatoes. This movie is just not good. The fact that you're introducing us a team of new heroes in the MCU, and when they team up, they're not even teaming up all together. It's like a band. It's like bringing the band back together type movie. And to be honest, I don't really think that story needed to be here for this film. And they kill off certain characters. I will say occasionally there's some fun characters that I do like in the film, like Gilgamesh. I like Angelina Jolie's character in here. I liked Kugo, or whatever his name is. So yeah, and some fun action sequences, but overall, the movie, it was also too long. So yeah, I wasn't entirely the biggest fan of this one, and a lot of people weren't either, so oh well. But yeah, Eternals, it's easily one of the worst films in the MCU. Then we have Spider-Man No Way Home. This is how you do a Spider-Man movie. Obviously, it is a big fan service movie. You can call it whatever you want. I don't care. I loved it. Yes, there's a few issues in the story, but honestly, it feels like it's just a big nitpick. But at the same time, it's like all the other stuff, it's loved. But even though I would have loved to see some other things differently, I still love the way they handled it. The way that they were able to bring in the two other Spider-Man from other universes and have them interact with Tom Holland's Peter Parker, that was so great, so interesting. Doing live action Spider-Verse, so amazing. And I love that this basically was showing us that this is basically Tom's origin story. This whole trilogy has been his origin story for Peter Parker. And doing the origin story in such a unique way was such a unique way to tell this story. I loved what they did with this. So, yeah, I'm going to put this one in the A tier. Going to go right there. Top tier. Then we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Very flawed movie, but I still really enjoy it, to be honest. I enjoy the Sam Raimi effects. I enjoy what they did with Wanda, and I enjoyed seeing America Chavez, the Illuminati, and Captain Carter, and Black Bolt, and Professor X. Yeah, it's kind of dumb. I still think overall I tend to get some enjoyment out of it. So I'm going to put this one in C. Because I get a good feeling from it. So I'm going to put it in the middle of Captain Marvel and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Then we have Thor: Love and Thunder. This is also another one that I think was very disappointing. Because on the one hand, coming off of Thor Ragnarok, which was so great, I just had so much, anticipation for this movie. Yeah, this is going to be the next best thing. And they fumbled this movie bad. Where Thor Ragnarok was so great in front of the comedy, this movie does way too much with the comedy. And that was the biggest fumble in the MCU. And the movie doesn't have any stakes to where they can't let anyone die. To where, like, you thought Korg or Valkyrie was going to die. No, they don't die. I even thought the way they handled Korg, not Gore the God Butcher, they handled him very weirdly to where we don't really get to see him butcher anyone. So that was weird. Some of the action scenes I thought were actually very good. And especially like the black and white fight I thought was fantastic. And I did like the stuff with Jane, but honestly, that's like the only thing that worked for this movie for me. The entire journey itself was just kind of stupid. And yeah, so I wish they handled this movie a lot better. And if they decide to get a better director for the Thor movies, they gotta pick someone better, man, because they finally found the right touch to do Thor, and they took advantage. They took advantage of it, and it did not work. And so I'm gonna put it above Eternals, because Eternals is just really bad. But I liked Thor a little bit more because of the action and because of the Jane Foster stuff, and it's a little bit memorable, and it's a little bit better done. But then we have Wakanda Forever, and this one was a little bit frustrating because, you know, they made it during the production of COVID and also when Chadwick Boseman passed away. And so how are you going to do a Black Panther sequel without Chadwick Boseman as the main character? And for me, I thought they handled this movie in such of the greatest of ways. Of course, one of the best things about the first film was that they were able to create a great slash of characters. So basically, you can continue the story of those characters, but also share what are their feelings about the king's death. And I thought that was very unique of what they did. At the same time, having Namor in the MCU I thought was great. I thought introducing us to the new world of Talokan was really fun or really good. Some of the action scenes, like the bridge fight in Boston, on the Boston Bridge, I thought was great. Just a lot of great stuff that I thought was great. And overall, it did what it was trying to do really well. And it seems a little long at times, especially with like the Ross scenes. But overall, this movie did its job really, really well. So yeah, I'm gonna put this one in the yes tier. Then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and yeah, you're gonna go in F tier. This to me, what makes it just really bad is that it's hard to care about anything of this movie. I think what this movie did is, like, there is an interesting concept of Ant-Man going to the quantum realm. But the problem with that is that the quantum realm itself is actually kind of interesting. It probably feels a lot more like Star Wars than the Guardians movies do, with like the broccoli head and stuff like that. But then you realize Ant-Man's going to go up against our main boss that we're going to be facing towards the next two Avengers movies. So how is that going to work? And you realize, wait, why on earth would we ever want to see Ant-Man fight Kang the Conqueror? Why would that ever work? And plus all the MODOK stuff, like, yeah, you could trash on it. I thought the design was fine, though he is ugly as fuck. And then also, I think the thing I hated more about the most was the story. All of the characters have no arcs whatsoever. None of the performances really ever worked for me. Not even Bill Murray did a good job in here. And even Jonathan Majors, I can't even really compliment him because of him getting fired. But also, he didn't really even do the best job he could in this movie. And he gets defeated by ants. So, therefore, they do something kind of interesting in connecting it with Janet. But, yeah, he's just not a good villain. This movie's not good. But then we get Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and I think that this is actually one of the best films in the entire MCU. You're going to go in the A tier. I love this movie with all of my heart. If anything, this is my favorite movie of the decade. I love this movie. I think what this movie did so well for me and why I connected it with so much is because you look at the first Guardians, it's basically like they took these nobodies of characters that we barely knew and connected and basically like I kept complaining that the action wasn't that good, and you watch Guardians 3 and I'm like, oh yeah, the action's so great in this, but I'm actually connecting with more about the characters and that story of them and just how emotional that story is, and the fact that I care about it so much just tells me the greatness of James Gunn and his work. But at the same time, learning the story about Rocket and the way that they executed every single character in this movie, whether it's a main character or a side character or anything of that, this movie has so much sauce to it that it's coming from a director of James Gunn, a comic book movie director, to where he did projects of The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, which in my opinion have been very good projects and were the true projects that proves what he is worth. And you get Guardians 3, and this is his sign off to Marvel, but this was like his big up and coming movie that like was going to result in all of his work that he was trying to do. And I thought they handled this perfectly, where it brought so much emotion, so much care to the performances and actors, to the characters, such great action sequences, a great soundtrack, an emotional journey with all these characters, and it was just such a great movie. And I don't think I'll ever see a movie like this ever again. It's my favorite movie of the decade. So, yeah, I'm in love. I've been in love with Guardians 3 since 2 years ago, and I still am. And then we have the Marvels, and yeah, it's fine. I can't really like say too much about it. Like, yeah, it's flawed, but if I'm being honest, like, I don't hate on it that much though. I kind of just look at the team of Marvels with like Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel and Photon, and it's fun. They're a fun trio of characters. So, yeah, I'm not really hating on them, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm going to put this one in the C tier, though. Yeah, I'm going to put it in C. And then we have Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm going to be honest. This movie is very flawed. It has, compared to No Way Home problems, this movie is flawed. Like, in order to explain of why this movie's happening, it's very stupid, and I really wish it made a whole lot of sense. But when it gets good, it gets good. Like, seeing Deadpool and Wolverine bicker back and forth and, like, try to kill each other, it's so much fun. But at the same time, like, you get those multiverse cameos with, like, Wesley Snipes' Blade and Channing Tatum Gambit. It's so good. And honestly, it's like everybody praises this movie because it's like such an iconic movie. But I'm like, I see it as that too, and I'm like, but like it's not perfect. Like I want like Guardians 3 to get this type of treatment, not Deadpool. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have fun. I'm just gonna have fun with the whole experience. So yeah, I'm gonna put this one in yes. Just where do I put it in yes though? I'm just gonna go there. And then finally, the newest film in the MCU, Captain America: Brave New World. Where do I put you? I'm gonna put Brave New World in the D tier. I'm gonna put it in the D tier. Actually, I'm gonna put it D. I would say that I already posted my review, so you can go check it out. But I think this movie is good. It's good enough. It's decent. Some of the action's good. It's decent. Sam Wilson is great. Isaiah Bradley is great. His friend, the new Falcon, is good. Leader was good. I don't have any complaints about him. Harrison Ford as Ross was really good. Some of the story was kind of clunky, but overall, what they did with the movie was overall very solid and very good. So I don't have many issues with it, but it is flawed. It is very flawed, and that's all I can really say about it. And that is my updated MCU tier list. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.